4, 3, 2, 1.
Studio Classroom is
Recording.
Studio Classroom. Studio Classroom.
Please stand by.
Studio Classroom.
Studio Classroom is on the air.
Welcome to Studio Classroom on the air. Your English will improve today. My name is Carolyn. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to live at sea? Usually that would mean living on a boat. But the Seasteading Institute wants to build floating cities. Would you like to have a house floating on the ocean? Our lesson today is Floating Cities, Humanity's Next Frontier. Floating cities are an interesting idea, but how would they work? A project like this must be very expensive. Let's find out about the Seasteading Institute's plan for their cities.
Floating Cities, Humanity's Next Frontier. The Seasteading Institute's team consists of researchers, investors, environmentalists, scientists, engineers, and other qualified professionals. Their first endeavor will be the Floating Island Project, the world's first floating community, which they hope to begin building in the near future. In making preparations, the team quickly discovered that starting from scratch would be too expensive. Instead, they hope to partner with French Polynesia, which would allow them to take advantage of some already existing infrastructure. An agreement with the nation was signed on January 13, 2017.
Hi everyone, welcome to Language Lab. 首先我们看的是 investor 这个名词。我们学过 invest 这个动词是指投资，加上 or 这个代表人的字尾 investor 就是指投资者。例如 The largest investor of this startup is an Asian tycoon. 这家新创公司最大的投资者是一位亚洲的企业界大亨。或者是 small investors of the company came together to ask for the change of its CEO. 这家公司的小额投资者联合在一起要求要更换执行长。或者是 over 50% of the shares of the company are sold to public investors. 这家公司超过 50% 的股份都卖给公众投资者。接下来我们看 infrastructure 这个名词。Infrastructure 是指基础建设，例如马路、水电等设备。例如 The infrastructure of this city was seriously damaged by the hurricane. 这个城市的基础建设被飓风严重的破坏。或者是 The country is improving their telecommunication infrastructure to provide free Wi-Fi to more people. 这个国家正在改善电信基础建设，让更多人可以享用免费无线网络。或者是 The project is to attract outside investment in the region's tourist infrastructure. 这个计划是要吸引外来投资人投入这个地区的观光基础建设。
Thank you very much, Michelle. Now today in our lesson, we're continuing to learn a little bit about the Seasteading Institute and their plans to build floating cities. So let's get right into our lesson. We read, the Seasteading Institute's team consists of researchers, investors, environmentalists, scientists, engineers, and other qualified professionals. So they have a lot of people assisting with this project. And we want to look at this phrase right here, consist of. If something consists of something, that means that it includes those things.
Yeah, so for example, the salad that I had for lunch today consisted of, well, romaine lettuce, which is delicious. It consisted of tomatoes, those little cherry tomatoes, It also had some almonds and some salmon. It consisted of a lot of things.
Well, it sounds like it consisted of many delicious things.
Oh, yeah.
And the Seasteading Institute's team consists of many different people. And one type of person they have there are environmentalists. So let's look at this term for a moment. If someone is an environmentalist, it means that they work to protect the natural environment from destruction.
Okay, so these professions are all very important, right? You need to have your researchers, investors, scientists, engineers to figure out the logistics of doing seasteading. And of course, environmentalists are important. You don't want to forget them in a project like this because after all, you're taking this project out into the middle of the ocean. You want to make sure that you're not harming any of the wildlife. So it's good that they have some environmentalists on board.
Exactly. We want to make sure that we protect the natural environment while also being able to live healthy, productive lives. So they have a great team, it sounds like, and we read that their first endeavor will be the Floating Island Project, the world's first floating community, which they hope to begin building in the near future. And I like the word here used, endeavor. So endeavor means that someone makes a serious attempt. It is a serious attempt to work toward a particular goal.
So for another example of how to use that word, though it took a while, building the school was a worthwhile endeavor. Okay, so like Carolyn said, you take something very seriously. Often it takes a lot of work and energy when you endeavor to do something. As you can see, this word can also be used as a verb, okay? Tom endeavored to start his own business. Will he succeed? I hope so.
Well, hopefully it is a worthwhile endeavor, and the Seasteading Institute is endeavoring into an interesting project, the Floating Island Project. Now, we learn in our next paragraph something interesting that happened. In making preparations, the team quickly discovered that starting from scratch would be too expensive. And I would imagine that to be true. It would be very expensive to build these floating cities from scratch. But I want to look at a phrase used in the very beginning of this sentence. In doing something or in making something. And this simply indicates that it's happening while they were in the process of doing something.
That's right. So if you can replace the word in with that full phrase, in the process of doing something, then you can use the word in, okay? Otherwise, you might need to use another word. However, here's another example. It reminded me of a story when I was in college, and I came to the end of college, and it's time to graduate. And in American universities, you send out college graduation announcements. And, you know, part of the purpose is so that people might be able to send some checks or some kind of money to help you as you exit college and get into the real world. Well, in sending out these college announcements, I forgot to write the return address. So I sent out all these college announcements, and I never got any checks or any money from anybody to help out. In the process, I forgot to write the return address.
Oh, that's a shame. There are a lot of things that you need to remember when you are in the process of doing something. And the Seasteading Institute learned something interesting in the process of starting their project. They discovered it would be too expensive to start from scratch, so instead they hope to partner with French Polynesia, which would allow them to take advantage of some already existing infrastructure. And that seems like a pretty good idea.
Well, right, you need to partner with somebody at first, right, before you can actually get your real goal to happen. Well, I do like that phrase that is also mentioned in our lesson, to start from scratch, and that basically means to start with nothing, with almost no resources, and to do everything from the very, very beginning.
Right, and we learned that an agreement with French Polynesia was signed on January 13th, 2017. So it sounds like they've been able to make at least a little progress, but they are working with a government.
Yes, they are. And they're taking advantage of the opportunities that they have, I believe. And we see that phrase to take advantage of here in our lesson. Friends, is there a difference between taking advantage of something and taking advantage of someone?
That's an excellent question. Let's find out the answer in the Info Cloud.
Welcome to InfoCloud. Today we will talk about the difference between taking advantage of something and taking advantage of someone.
This is an easy but important difference. When you take advantage of something, you are taking advantage of an opportunity.
This is almost always a very positive thing. We use it to say that we didn't let an opportunity pass us by.
Growing up, I never really had the chance to learn a language other than English. So, when I moved to Asia, I had to take advantage of the chance to learn Chinese.
But when you take advantage of someone, you are benefiting yourself at the expense of someone else.
Scams are tricks that are designed to take advantage of trusting people. The scammer tries to find some way to trick people into giving away their money.
Here, Joe could also have said that scammers take advantage of people's trust or their good nature.
That technically is taking advantage of something that belongs to someone else. But the basic meaning is that they are taking advantage of someone, and that is never a good thing.
我们都知道，利用一件事情和利用一个人在意义上有着天壤之别。今天要来讨论 take advantage of something 还有 take advantage of someone 之间的差别。Take advantage 有充分利用的含义。当你 take advantage of something 利用一件事情或机会，这是正面的事情。He took advantage of living in New York and learned English. 他利用了住在纽约的机会，学习了英文。另外一方面 ，take advantage of someone 利用某个人就不太好了。She is so nice that everyone takes advantage of her. 她人太好，每个人都利用她。这就是今天的 Info Cloud， 我们下次云端见。
Studio Classroom is on the air.
Welcome back. Today we're looking at the lesson Floating Cities, Humanity's Next Frontier. And we've learned a little bit about the Seasteading Institute and their plans to build floating cities. This sounds like a pretty interesting idea, but it's not without challenges. Let's learn about some of the challenges they are facing with their project now.
Floating cities, humanity's next frontier. However, due to pushback from local residents, it is uncertain if and when construction will begin. The Seasteading Institute believes a partnership with French Polynesia will be beneficial for both sides. Another great challenge builders will face is the need to create a structure steady enough to prevent seasickness. The plan is to build several platforms, each over 50 meters long, with stabilizers. Some models provide a space large enough to house several hundred people and include housing, offices, and recreational areas. If the first seasteading city is successful, planners predict future islands that will be dedicated to all forms of exploration designed to solve humanity's biggest challenges.
Alright， 继续我们看 pushback 这个名词。pushback 在这里是指阻力或反对，是一个不可数名词。例如 the construction of a new freeway in this area received lots of pushback from the locals. 这个地区要盖一条新的高速公路这件事受到了当地居民极大的反对，或者是 facing pushback of the retailers, the supplier quit raising prices。面对零售商的阻力，这家供应商放弃提高他们的价格，或者是 the pushback from the customers on the new refund policy has been intense。客户们对于新的退款制度的反抗一直都很激烈。最后我们看的是 stabilizer 这个名词 ，st 这个字根有站立的意思，所以 stabilizer 是指稳定器或者是稳定装置。例如 the tail stabilizer of this airplane needs to be aligned， 这架飞机尾翼的稳定器需要被校正。stabilizer 也指稳定剂。例如 Larry has been taking mood stabilizers to ease his anxiety since high school。Larry 高中开始就用情绪稳定剂来平复他的焦虑情绪。它的动词是字尾去掉 r 变成 stabilize。例如 the patient's condition stabilized after taking the medication。服药之后，病人的状况就稳定下来了。And now let's get back to the teachers.
Thank you, Michelle. Now let's continue learning from our lesson about what happened with the Seasteading Institute and their agreement with French Polynesia. We read, however, due to pushback from local residents, it is uncertain if and when construction will begin. So it sounds like they're having some trouble here, Gabe.
Right. Well, this kind of thing happens with a lot of big projects. There might be some resistance, right? And there's some pushback here, as our lesson says. So we don't know if this is actually going to happen. We don't know if it will happen or when it will happen.
And that's a really great phrase in this sentence, if and when. We use this to indicate that something will happen at a future time, but we don't know when, and it will only happen at that future time if certain circumstances are met.
Exactly. Often we separate these ideas. So if I do this, then I'll do that. Or when you do this, could you also do that? But here we see these words together. It's kind of fun to use it together if possible, okay? So maybe a father might say, if and when we have a boy, we are going to name him after my father. So they, of course, don't know. You can never predict if you're going to have a girl or a boy. If and when we do, let's name him after Dad.
Well, that's a good idea. People like to name their children after loved ones. Now, if and when construction will begin, that is uncertain for these floating cities, but the Seasteading Institute believes a partnership with French Polynesia will be beneficial for both sides.
Okay, so it's going to be a win-win situation. Hopefully, it will be beneficial for many people. Another great challenge builders will face is the need to create a structure steady enough to prevent seasickness. This is one of the things that I was thinking about when I first read this article. What's going to happen when there are those big waves that come in, right? Because that could cause not only seasickness, but maybe even damage to some of the structures. I'm not sure. But friends, let's take a look at that word, seasickness. What's that all about?
Well, that's very simply the uneasy feeling that people get after being rocked back and forth on the waves when they're on the sea, maybe on a boat. It can cause people to throw up, which is never pleasant. And another way you could describe this is simply motion sickness.
Right. Okay, so if you're in a car and you get sick because of the motion, you get car sick. We could also say that you could talk about when you get sick in an airplane, that is air sickness. However, if you want to talk about the general idea, Carolyn just said it, and that is motion sickness. So some people might get motion sickness if they're living on one of these places.
Well, they're hoping to prevent that, and the plan is to build several platforms, each over 50 meters long with stabilizers. And I like this phrase at the beginning of the sentence, the plan is to do something. And that's just used to express how something will be done or how a process will be carried out.
All right, so usually I use the word plan as a, well, I could use it as a verb or as a noun. I would rephrase this to say, they plan to build several platforms, okay? So you could use the word plan as a verb like that. However, here's another way to use it. like it's used in our sentence. So for this Saturday, the plan is to meet at my house at 9 o'clock, and then we'll go to the hiking trail from there.
Sounds like a great plan. And their plan here is pretty interesting, trying to prevent seasickness. And we read that some models provide a space large enough to house several hundred people and include housing, offices, and recreational areas. And I like this word here, models. It's not talking about someone who looks really good and wears different clothes. Here, a model is a small object that's made to look like the finished product.
That's right. Well, our last paragraph here says, if the first seasteading city is successful, that's a lot of S's for the sound there, planners predict future islands that will be dedicated to all forms of exploration designed to solve humanity's biggest problems. That sounds like a great goal to solve humanity's biggest problems, and we have a great goal in mind right now. Let's enjoy today's review skit.
Life is so difficult. The world has so many problems.
Yes, problems like feeding the poor, curing illness, preventing wars.
Yes, and the list goes on.
Maybe the answer is the creation of a new society.
The creation of a new society? But where?
Right there, out in the ocean.
Seriously? Creating a permanent dwelling place at sea?
Yes, like homesteading, but called seasteading.
Seasteading? That's an idea.
Imagine floating cities which allow the next generation to peacefully test out new ideas for living.
Yeah, but I don't think it will work. Government regulations are too tedious.
Not if you build 200 miles from the coastline in international waters.
Of course. Then communities could establish their own rules.
Yes, freedom from strict government control would speed up everything.
You'd have to put together a team. Researchers, investors, environmentalists, scientists, engineers, and other qualified professionals. That wouldn't be easy.
There is a team. It's the Seasteading Institute. They're already working on their first endeavor, the Floating Island Project.
The Floating Island Project.
To date, over 1,000 people have donated money, and hundreds more have shared their expertise.
That's impressive, but starting from scratch won't be easy.
That's why they're taking advantage of some already existing infrastructure.
That could work.
The plan is to build several sturdy platforms with stabilizers.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so how about joining the team? Would you like to live in a city at sea?
No thanks. I get really seasick.
Well, the idea of seasteading is certainly interesting, but if and when construction will begin is still uncertain. If and when, try to use that phrase in English, and we'll see you next time on Studio Classroom.
A friend cares at all times. A friend endures at all times. A good friend lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.